Good morning, Western Slope. I'm Bailey Braun, and a quick update on Hurricane Beryl. There are two scenarios that can take place for Hurricane Beryl for the next couple of days. The first scenario is that it can come through and head a little bit more southwest and hit the Yucatan Peninsula at this angle, or scenario two is that it could come and hit a bit more north up here around Texas. Now, the way that I think that this is going to go is that since it already hit Jamaica and there's this high pressure system over the southern region of the United States right now, I think this is going to be pulling it a little bit more north and it's going to hit more towards Texas and Louisiana. Now that doesn't mean that it's going to do that, but it's called a cone of uncertainty for a reason. Now another thing that I wanted to point out is yesterday our hail outlook was only at 5% for this whole region right here, and today it's at 15%, which means, again, there is a higher increase of hail occurring today. Now, hail is formed whenever this supercell, that's what we had yesterday, a not very common thunderstorm basically, and it carries all this moisture and heavy rain and hail potential, but it brings in the moisture up to the top where it's much colder up here in this atmosphere, and as the moisture rises, it compacts and freezes like how you would compact a snowball, and as it compacts, it gets heavier and heavier, and then that's when it falls to the ground. That's exactly what happened yesterday. But if you'll notice on the eastern side of the United States, there is a lot of moisture over here. And this giant circle over the southern region, that's a high pressure system that I want to point out to you. Now that's causing a lot of heat potential over here in the southern region, right around here. And there's also a lot of storms happening over the Midwest, and that's because there's kind of a convergence between southerly air and northerly air as well. So it's bringing in hot and moist air and condensing with cooler and more dry air. So there's those clear skies that I was talking about all across the western United States, and there's those storms that I was talking about pushing together and mixing with this low pressure system right over here.
Which means lots of weather activity. So let's jump right into it. Over here in the northeast, over here with Maine and New York, we see that this low pressure system hovering over the Atlantic is causing lots of moisture, which brings in lots of storms into these areas that I just mentioned. So if you are in those areas, be sure to bring an umbrella with you anywhere you go because you could get rained on, but it will clear out as the weekend progresses. But over here in the southern plains, there's this band of moisture stretching across from New Mexico all the way into Kansas, and that's from this stationary front right over here. Now, as this low pressure system moves through, there is an increase in severity of these thunderstorms, so do be on the lookout if you live in any of these regions right here because there could be potential for tornadoes and hail as well. But just south of there in Texas, we do have this high pressure system which is bringing in record highs for Texas, but back to the East Coast, UCF has you covered for more. As we have most every morning, one of the many perks of living here on the Western Slope. Now all of this moisture in Colorado, it's being dragged between these two pressure systems right here. They're acting as kind of a conveyor belt and just keeping that moisture pumping out throughout Colorado, and we're gonna see a lot more of that today than yesterday. Now one thing that I wanna point out is that yesterday on our radar, we only saw green, yellow, and red. We didn't see any purple, and purple represents hail. But already we're seeing this hail spike right here. So if we didn't see it yesterday and there was a lot of hail, do expect it today because it's definitely gonna be a threat later on. But we should start to see storms rolling in around noon and then hitting Grand Junction mostly around 2 and the early afternoon, of course, and then it'll stay around for the earlier evening hours. And again, here's another hail spike that I just want to point out because like I said, it wasn't there yesterday, but it is there today, which means that there's a higher increase of that happening. Now there's a lot listed as a vulnerable species and face several threats including deforestation, bushfires, disease, and drought.
But they are very cute, isn't that right?
They are
look
so,
at these guys.
I mean, look at their little ears.
Look at these guys.
They're like little babies. You could just squeeze them and pick them up.
Pick them up, hang out with them, give them high fives. I don't know what else koalas do. I think they just kind of hang around in the trees.
I think they just exist and live a nice, calm life.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and something I've always wondered with koalas, I'll have to look it up later, but you know, they're covered in this fur and I feel like they live in a pretty warm environment. Like, how do they not get too hot?
I know, that's kind of what I was thinking. I mean, I couldn't understand how anyone could hate those.
Yeah, no, me neither. I mean, it's crazy for people to not like koalas. But Western Slope, stick around. We'll have more news and weather coming your way after the break.
And around the area on the western United States, we have a lot cooler temperatures for Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, and even Idaho is seeing much cooler temperatures compared to states like the Midwest over here. So it's a lot cooler, and that is all because this low pressure system that's moved out, it's bringing a cold front with it as well. And with it, we have this band of moisture right around here. So on the western slope, we're seeing that, Utah's seeing that, and Wyoming is also seeing that as well. So that's where those cooler temperatures are coming from. So our winds are also going to start to increase. They're going to be low starting off for today, and then later on this afternoon, they're going to build to the teens. So around 15 miles per hour is what we're going to see later on today. And then tomorrow, it's going to build pretty quickly. Around noon, it'll already be at 15, but then later on to the afternoon hours, we're going to see it increase into the 20s. So that also really, and then later on tomorrow, we're going to see a high of 94, so just a little bit warmer, and even Moab is hitting that 100-degree mark. So we're not Moab, which is nice, but it's still gonna get warmer as summer rolls on in. Western slope area, because this southwesterly air is bringing in warmer temperatures, so it's a little bit warmer today than it was yesterday, and that's all because of that southwesterly flow. But if you'll notice, as it progresses into tomorrow, we have a little bit of moisture coming in on Thursday, but then once Friday rolls around, we'll have a lot more moisture coming into the western slope and more higher elevation regions as well. They'll mostly start to see that. Morning western slope. Yesterday we had quite the hailstorm, something unlike anything that I had ever seen before, and I've lived in the valley all of my life. But today we can probably expect something very similar. We will have some severe thunderstorm advisories ahead of us, so make sure you're keeping an eye on your notifications. We are in a flood watch currently, and we will be all throughout the day. And of course, hail was the problem yesterday, and it's going to be more of a problem today. Now again, like I said, we're still in our flood watch, and we saw how bad it was yesterday and how important it is to know about our flood watches. So keep an eye on that. And on America's Mattress Live Tower Cam, we're already starting to see some moisture falling right over the mesa over here, but we do have a beautiful sunrise. There's that moisture that I was talking about, and expect the rainfall to start coming within the next few hours. Good morning, Western Slope. I'm Bailey Braun, and before we get into our 4th of July festivities, here's a quick update on Hurricane Beryl. Now, it just hit Jamaica yesterday, and it hit at a Category 4 level. It caused a lot of destruction, and it wiped out a lot of areas and caused a lot of flooding. But the good news is that as it progresses out towards the Yucatan Peninsula, it's starting to die down quite a bit. So it should hit Mexico around a Category 3 to Category 2 level. So it is starting to die down, but it is the fastest building hurricane that we have recorded yet. But here on our western slope of Colorado, we can expect to see some sunny skies and very dry conditions, all because of this flow that's coming out of the northwest of the United States. Now, this is also bringing a mixture of moisture to the Midwest, which is causing a lot of storms as well. There's a convergence between the northern air and the southerly air, and that's bringing in a lot of moisture and a lot of storms. And just like on America's Mattress Live Tower Cam, that's what we can expect to see throughout the rest of our day today and going into the weekend.
And speaking of that weather, tell us what it's going to look like.
I mean, right now we have clear skies, clear conditions, and that was the case for yesterday, and that's also going to be the case going into the weekend. But make sure that you stay tuned for more after the break.